Okay, awesome. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to Friday Night Comics. This is Drawing Your Ancestors workshop. My name is Tanna Tucker. My pronouns are she, her. Before we get started, I just want to say a big thank you to Believer Magazine, especially Kristen Radke, for organizing this amazing space for us to gather and make comics together. It's really special. And also thank you to the Sequential Artists Workshop for co-sponsoring tonight. So I'm going to be really brief and just sharing a little bit about my work so we can get right into drawing. But as I said, my name is Tanna and I'm a cartoonist and writer. And I'm currently hard at work on drawing a massive Afrofuturist graphic novel co-created with Ytasha Womack, coming out from Abrams Megascope in 2023. So I'm hard at work on that, but generally, and I'm going to share my screen. And hopefully you all can see my slideshow. Oops. There we go. So yeah, I'm working on a massive graphic novel, but generally, my comics are toggling between nonfiction and sort of this more straightforward historical journalistic space, and fiction comics that get really imaginative, surreal, and Afrofuturist. And all of them, no matter kind of what space I'm working in, the goal is to highlight and investigate and connect to obscure histories of solidarity, resistance, and Black history. And I'm often using comics and drawing as this very literal space to map my relationship to Black diaspora. And so I tried to choose a couple of examples that relate to what we're dealing with tonight, which is honoring ancestors and personal and family mythologies. So yeah, this is a comic that I just did for Believer. It's called Symmetry, and it's a 7-page comic that explores my relationship to Black expats who went to Paris, and chief among them is James Baldwin. And we're talking about ancestors tonight, and I definitely regard James Baldwin as one of my ancestors. In fact, the comic I'll be demoing for you tonight is that's gonna be my ancestor tribute, is James Baldwin. And so these explorations of history are always underlying what I'm doing, but this is the first time that I experimented with sort of weaving personal memoir with an exploration of history and sort of figuring that out. This is a 1-page comic I did for the Baylies Comics anthology, and it's a reflection and tribute to Alice and John Coltrane. Again, 2 figures that I regard as ancestors, and the piece is reflecting on sort of, just the way that their music has impacted me. It's reflecting on their relationship to music, to each other, and also to their relationship of spirituality and their spiritual practice and the metaphysical, which I am endlessly fascinated by. And the last example I'll show you, this is a page from a comic I made, an Afrofuturist comic I made called Sisters in Arms, that was exploring Afro-Asian solidarity. And I took the true story of Black American soldiers defecting to Filipino resistance fighters during the American occupation in the early 1900s, and then created this surreal sort of dreaming, imagining about what these 2 soldiers might have bonded over, in addition to like this opposition of American imperialism. And so the speculative part is that they bond over this shared experience of ancestral wisdom and resistance. And then there's like a ghost story component as well. And we're going to jump into the workshop. And before we get into drawing, I kind of wanted to talk about just the way I'm using this word ancestor and definition of ancestor. So an ancestor can be anyone that is a touchstone for you or that you feel connected to who is no longer with us. It can include, but is not limited to, someone from your given and chosen family, a community member, or a historical figure that you look up to. Sometimes we can feel deeply connected to an ancestor, even if we haven't met them or don't know what they look like. So perhaps you've connected with one through a story someone told you. So say a parent told you a story about a great-great-grandparent or someone that's several generations removed, and you felt deeply connected. And you may not even have any photography or pictures. It may just be this, really deep heart connection you have with something that was passed down to you through oral tradition. And so I really want to name and note that, because that's a really valid and important connection. So I just hope this gets you to start thinking about how we can engage this topic of ancestors. And as we enter into the journaling prompt, I felt really called to include this quote from Toni Morrison, because we're talking about ancestors and the function of memory and imagination to connect and sort of put fragmented story together. And this is from an essay where Toni Morrison is talking about this exact thing, how as a writer, and you're all writers and artists, how we're using memory and imagination to put the pieces together. And she's talking about how she's done this for her own ancestors and trying to put stories together. And she writes, because no matter how fictional the account of these writers or how much it was a product of invention, the act of imagination is bound up with memory. They straightened out the Mississippi River in places to make room for houses and livable acreage. Occasionally, the river floods these places. Floods is the word they use, but in fact, it is not flooding, it is remembering. Remembering where it used to be. All water has a perfect memory and is forever trying to get back to where it was. Writers are like that, remembering where we were, what valley we ran through, what the banks were like, the light that was there, and the route back to our original place. It is emotional memory, what the nerves and the skin remember as well as how it appeared. And a rush of imagination is our flooding. So if that resonates, I hope that you just keep that in mind as we move forward and really start to meditate on what ancestors means to you. And so we're going to start with just a few minutes of journaling to prepare for drawing. I invite you to get grounded, set an intention, light a candle if you're into that. I have some candles lit right now. And these are prompts and questions to ask yourself. I'm going to set the timer for 5 minutes, but this is just to kind of get ideas and creative juices going. You're completely invited to write about whatever you'd like. These are just some ideas. So I invite you to pick one of these and journal on it for 5 minutes. So you could think about a memory of an experience with your ancestor, perhaps an event or a conversation that stayed with you. You could think about a story from your family history or mythology. How would you tell it in sequential comic form? Think about a piece of wisdom or comfort your ancestor passed down to you. How did it come to you? Perhaps a quote that inspires you, resonates with you, or gives you strength during hard times. Or you could think about an ancestor you have never met. What would you say to them and how do you imagine them? So I'm going to leave this up and I'm going to set the timer for 5 minutes starting now, and I'll see you in 5 minutes. Okay, welcome back. So we're gonna get into drawing, and we're doing a 4-panel comic tonight. So as you can see through these very fancy schematic drawings, I just want you to go ahead and divide your page into 4 panels, and you can play with whatever proportions or sizes of panels that you'd like. I just threw up 2 examples here, but you're free to do whatever you'd like. And, you know, just a reminder that we don't have a lot of time together tonight, so don't feel pressured to produce something really finished. It's okay if the whole comic has a really loose, sort of sketchy feeling, and it's more just about getting into it and experimenting and experimenting with the topic and comics. So, whoops. There we go. We're going to start with panel 1, and I'm going to set the timer for 8 minutes. And I want everybody for just the first panel to work on introducing your ancestor to us and perhaps include 1 line about them. Tell us something that you love or admire about them. And I'll be drawing along with you. I'll be switching my screen over so you can see my drawing. And then feel free to drop questions in the chat, and then folks at Believer will send those to me. So see you in 8 minutes. And give me just a moment. There we go.
Tanna, could you tell us about the program we're using and why you like it?
Oh yeah, so I'm actually sketching and drawing in Procreate. I like the brushes in Procreate actually, and I have a screen protector that feels like a paper texture, and yeah, it's pretty intuitive to use. I used to draw everything tactily. I used to do all the line work tactily, and then I would scan it in and paint in Photoshop, and then like make my own watercolor textures and then scan those in and then add those in Photoshop. And I still do that, but now more and more I do all of my drawing in Procreate. So it's pretty easy. I like the sensitivity you can get with drawing. Nothing beats tactile, but it's been really helpful for when working on a lot of different projects and I need to work digitally. So yeah. And actually the entire comic that I drew, or for the entire comic of Symmetry, I drew all of that directly into Procreate. Oh, which brushes? Somebody's asking, what brushes do I like in Procreate? You know what? I actually only use the, what is it? I'm looking at it right now. I almost exclusively use the dry ink brush and the pencils, the sketching pencil brushes. That's pretty much all I use. And then I do flat colors, and then I still at the very end take my files into Photoshop and texture over there. And if anybody wants to share about their favorite tools, I'd love to hear it. Someone asked, can I recommend a particular screen protector for paper texture? The brand I use it's called iCares, I think. And it's pretty affordable, and it's worked pretty well for my iPad. Oh yeah, somebody else threw another good screen protector in there. I have not personally used anything on PC or Linux, but the Wacom tablets and Cintiqs are great. I'd rather work on one of those, to be honest with you. But even when I work tactily, I mean, I don't know, I don't really like to have too many things. So it always was just pretty simple, like pretty much just pencil and a little bit of painting. My line work has always been like my final line, my ink line is still just pencil. So I'm not a traditional cartoonist in that way where I ink over a pencil line. Okay, someone asked, how do I do color in Procreate? And I mentioned flat color. I just use, I think the brush, it's a really fat, flat brush in the painting palette. I think it's called like Painting Brushes palette. And I just kind of go in with the saturation turned all the way up. And I'm only usually working with 3 or 4 colors, so a pretty limited palette. So that's what I mean by I just kind of go in and fill it in with flat color. So I'm not using like a paint bucket or anything. I'm just kind of going in with the brush, and then in Photoshop, I will go in and fine tune if it's something that I'm really texturing. Okay, so that's our first 8 minutes. And I'm just going to quickly toggle back over to my screen so I can give you the next set of instructions. And if you guys want to hold up your drawings to the screen just to show everybody where you're at so far and like give each other excitement and encouragement, go ahead and do that if you'd like. Okay, so we're going to move into our panels 2 through 4, and I'm going to do roughly 8 minutes each. We might cut the last one a little bit short so we have time for sharing, but this is where I really want you to bring in that journaling exercise. So if you haven't already started to work into what you had written, this is where I really want you to bring that in and flesh that out in the remaining 3 panels. Draw what you journaled about your ancestor. And as a reminder, I have here for you, we're thinking about a memory or imagined conversation, ancestral wisdom they passed on to you, and also perhaps consider the setting. Are you meeting in a dream if you're in it and you're interacting with them, or a place from your past? And as you draw, I want you to think about the way you feel in their presence. And I'm going to go ahead and set the timer for 8 minutes again. And again, obviously don't feel bad if you don't finish your comic. I hope that you feel inspired to finish it after this. And someone's asking to discuss the value of drawing from memory or audio versus from family photos. I think that they're all useful and valid. I think it's a good exercise to practice drawing from memory or photography or reference. I do both. Yeah, I think they both are really, really good exercises to toggle between. Okay. And we're going to get to sharing soon, but we're going to do, we're going to do maybe just 5 minutes each for the last 2 panels, since really it's just about working out these last 3 panels. So I'm just going to set the timer so you know when to kind of move on to the next one. So I'm going to reset for 5 minutes, and then we'll have about 10 or 12 minutes for sharing. Okay. And since we're just a little short on time, I think we're going to actually just pivot to sharing. So I know we're not completely finished, but I'd love to see what everybody's working on, and the folks at Believer will help us to see your screens. I think you can raise your hand in the chat or just in the screen, and they'll call on you. And I'd love to see what you're making if you feel like sharing. Okay.
Hi. Wow, sorry, I'm on my phone. So I'm Claire. I didn't expect to be called on so quick. I'm in my garden in Atlanta with my dog, and I was thinking about my grandmother who passed away, and what she taught me and how much I miss getting to show her the things in my life right now. So let me see if I can flip. Okay, so here's what I was drawing.
That's awesome. Oh.
This is us meeting in the garden. Here's my leg and here's her leg. And this is some flowers I just planted. Here's my grandmother. She always wore a visor. And I wrote, her feet are the same, but her lipstick and wide grin are back in full color. And then over here, I wrote, her appetite is strong again, so we eat olive bread, her favorite. And then this is my dog, but it kind of looks like more like a child. But I've always thought like she would really like my dog, who's right there. So I didn't finish that, but that's the fourth panel.
That's great. And like I said, like no pressure. I mean, if you guys are enjoying, I hope that you continue to draw if you want at your leisure. But yeah, this is wonderful. I really love all of the details that we get to have. I love your introduction of her. When we meet in the garden. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And then, yeah, just please be sure to say your name and where you're joining from. And is it Prita? And you're on mute, I think.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, hi. Hi. So, okay, the cartoon, it's called Semel Paris. And it's this thing that I've been thinking about a lot, which is, it's about my grandmother, but it starts with an octopus. So when a female octopus gives birth, it starves itself to death. It only kind of lives for like a couple of years, gives birth, and then it starves itself to death. So this says like a female octopus gives birth once and then starves herself to death. And those are all the kids, her octopus kids. And then it's over here, it says, this is normal. The children raise themselves. And over here, it's a Bengali woman gives birth 3 times with 2 husbands, and then I ran out of time. And essentially, my mom and my aunt and my uncle, her half siblings, kind of raised themselves too. Because my grandmother was one of the first people to get a divorce in Calcutta and had to work a lot of jobs, which was also really weird. So there's a lot more cartooning that happens.
Yeah.
But I really think of my grandmother's love surrounding me like an infinite octopus. And
That's
it's
beautiful.
Weird how they're like intertwined.
I love that. I love that metaphor, and I love the way that you brought like the shape and the story of the octopus into your paneling. It's really rad. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Hi. Looks like we have Sarah.
Yeah, Sarah's my wife, but I'm Alexa, and I'm going to be sharing.
Hi.
So I don't really have a connection to my ancestors. I don't really know much about them, like personally. but I do often have a connection to places, which might be in connection to where my ancestors might have journeyed or where they might have resided. So
Absolutely.
One place that I really do connect with and I've never been to is ancient Egypt, like Egypt specifically, but I really have a connection to ancient Egypt. And I recently learned that I recently learned, here's my comic, by the way, but just to give you a backstory, I recently learned my uncle did a genealogy test and Egypt did come up. So I'm like, okay, maybe there's the connection there. So I did more, mine was more so about place than anything. And I just imagined what my ancestors might have probably looked like, especially how they might have dressed living in the desert. So right here, what does it say? The desert sands blows steadily against their headscarf as they admire the pyramids beyond. And then they're taking me through the architecture and through the buildings and places that ancient Egypt might have looked like. They lead me down dimly lit corridors with hieroglyphs and imagery.
I love that.
That opens up into a space lined with giant columns. And then at the end, I say, thank you for showing me around, but how do you endure the hot desert sun?
Oh, that's lovely. And I love what you're doing with bringing place into that, because it's a way to sort of, I think in a cathartic way, like play with the idea of ancestry when maybe you don't have a complete picture. And it's like, well, how do I feel connected to a history or a past? And I love that in a comic, it's somebody showing you around. So yeah, really beautiful use of imagination. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hi, EB.
Oh, hi, my name's Elise.
Elise?
I was running late, so I didn't change anything, but yeah, I like barely got started because I just got in about like 15 minutes ago.
That's all good.
Yeah, I was thinking, I really wanted to come because this weekend's Mother's Day and my mom died about 3 years ago. So I was kind of thinking about her in doing a comic. So this is the little bit I have so far.
That's lovely.
Yeah. So it just says that sometimes when I think of ancestors, that word makes them feel so far away. But this is my mom, who I consider my ancestor. She died 3 years ago. She is deeply embedded in the person I am. And then I started doing a panel about, because I was like looking at this photo of her and I have like very similar hair, but like at the end of her life, she kind of lost her hair because she had cancer. So like the chemo got rid of it. So I was like thinking about how now that's like something I carry with me of her. And then I wanted to do more kind of panels about that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That's really lovely. And I like what you said about ancestors feeling far away. If you continue to draw and you feel like sharing more later, feel free to send it and post it. But it's really lovely. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you for the questions.
You're welcome. Hi, Frankie.
Hi. Wow. Thank you for calling on me. So is it visible? Is it?
Yeah, we can see it. It looks great. Oh, I love what you did with your panels.
Thank you. I took the second example that you suggested. So this is my grandmother. This is her at 16. This is in 1947 China, and she was a student activist. She was really short. I wrote that she was short on height, but long on attitude. She was the president of the student council at her school. She led demonstrations. She organized prison sit-ins, and she told me how scary it was when the police came and beat them up. And the last panel is my great-grandmother holding her little brother saying, "You can't keep doing this, you're gonna die." And her saying, "Then I'll die." And my great-grandmother didn't even know that she was also involved in an underground resistance movement that if she was caught, she really would have died. So she's still around. She's 90 this year, and
oh, beautiful.
Really, really amazing.
Right on. I salute her. That's incredible. And I also just really love your drawing. It's beautiful drawing style. Yeah, I salute her. Thank you so much for sharing that.
My pleasure.
Rudy?
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks so much. I'm Rudy. I'm in Nantucket, Massachusetts. Yes. I also drew my grandmother, and this is a memory from when we grew up in a small town in South Texas, and I was in San Antonio, Texas, and we drive down on the weekend, and on Sunday she'd give us money to go buy sweetbread. And then she spoke Spanish. I didn't learn Spanish growing up. My parents didn't want me to for some reason. Lots of Texas. So we would talk by pantomiming mostly. Just when I was hungry, I would make motions and she would understand. And when I was hungry in between meals, she would make me fresh tortillas with butter. And that's her rolling pin right there. And my mom gave me her rolling pin.
Oh,
I use it today, and I like to think about this memory whenever I use it.
That's beautiful. I love that you have that as an heirloom and you're sort of enacting it every time you're baking with it.
Yes, exactly.
That's beautiful. I feel like I'm gonna cry, you guys. It's really lovely. Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you. Erica?
There we go. Hi, I'm in Brooklyn. Yeah, I really liked your prompt on creative ancestors. So there's like, if you live in New York, you go up to like Beacon as a getaway. And so when you take like the train up the Hudson River, I always felt like it was going to see my grandparents, to see the artists up there. So this is like Agnes Martin. It says, Grandma Agnes says, this looks like tranquility to me, even if no one else thinks so. And Sarah's Grandpa Richard says, be quiet and watch where you're walking. So yeah.
Two very different outlooks there on that journey. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I love that you included the conversation. Michael?
Hi, I decided to make a comic about my grandfather. This is what he looked like when he was in his 80s. But
wow.
This is what I drew. I'm in Los Angeles.
Welcome.
So this is, oops, sorry. So this is called Mission to America. The first panel is, I'm imagining my grandfather in a ship approaching the Golden Gate. And then the second panel is what I'm imagining his passport looked like. I just did a quick Google search to find out what did passports look like around 1911.
Right on, yeah.
And then I'm just trying to imagine my grandfather arriving in LA's old Chinatown. We have an old leather suitcase like that. So I'm imagining him arriving with a suitcase. And then the last panel was going to show him in front of an old Guomindang flag, because on his first trips when he was young, he used to come over here to raise money from the Chinese communities in the United States to bring back to China to support the revolution, the 1911 revolution. So I was going to draw the flag with him sitting with some other people asking them for money.
That's awesome. I love that you reconstructed this ancestor's journey for yourself. And yeah, that's a really amazing story. And I look forward to seeing it finished. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Wow. And looks like we have Kate.
Hi, yeah, I'm Kate. I'm in DC. And I went with the family like myth legend, which is I have family that was out in Wyoming, and my great grandfather bet the farm. He had 4 daughters and lost it. And
wow.
Yeah, and so I was just sketching it out. So, but then the story goes that his youngest daughter, who's my great grandmother, at the same time saw an ad for a bicycle, and the first bicycle came to town. It was in the general store. So she stole the family's old plow horse and took it into town without anyone knowing and traded it in for the bike. And the story is that he was coming into town to pay some of his debts, and he saw her just race by.
It's taking off on the bike.
Yeah.
Wow. What a story. That's so cool. And it's so cool that you have that story recorded.
Yeah,
That's
it's
awesome.
pretty wild.
Yeah, that is really wild. Thank you.
A lot of family problems, but also a good
hey,
story.
family dynamics are a trip, so it's that's all of us. But thank you for sharing. That's awesome. And I think we have time for one more. Hi, and please tell me how to say your name.
Hi, I'm Akshaya.
Beautiful. Welcome.
Thank you. And this workshop came at the right time. And every time I miss the workshops, and today is my birthday, and I couldn't ask for a better workshop about ancestors. And this is something I drew.
Wow.
I feel like I had a connection with my grandfather's sister. I used to hear that she was very beautiful and she had a lot of wisdom, but then she committed suicide due to some marital issues and due to some abuse. So I feel that she's always here teaching me to break the cycle of conditioning, break the cycle of patriarchy. So I feel that she's asking me to remember her as to whom she is, and not in the way of remembering her that she committed suicide. And
thank you.
So these are the two other things that I felt called to draw. This is about her giving me a wisdom of grow your heart, and your hands are healing, and then feeling seen. Like usually I think crying is like something that's wrong, and I feel that tears are very powerful, and let the tears not be wasted, and let it grow your heart, let it grow life. So these are the things I felt guided to draw. And I'm so grateful for this space. Thank you so much.
I'm so grateful that you came, and thank you for sharing and being so vulnerable. Sharing those drawings are powerful, and aren't we all? That is the work of so many of us working to break these cycles, these patriarchal and white supremacist cycles. So thank you for sharing that. Wow, I think we're at the end. I just want to say, sorry, I'm emotional. Thank you so much for sharing stories of your ancestors and for sharing vulnerability and for joining us here tonight. If you would like to share more of your comics later on social media, you can post them with the hashtag Friday Night Comics, or you can tag at Believer Mag, or if you'd like, you can tag me as well. I'm at Tanna on Instagram. I would really, really love to see more of your comics, or if you keep drawing and working on them. I know we had a short amount of time together tonight, so I'd love to see what else you guys do with them. So thank you very, very much. I'm really honored and really appreciative for you all being here.
Thank you so much, Tanna. Everybody, let's show our gratitude.
Thank you, Tanna.
Thank
you.
Thank you. Thank you. This was so amazing.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was amazing.
Hallelujah, Laura.
Happy birthday, Akshay.
Yes, and happy birthday. Thank you for spending your birthday with us. That's amazing.
I know, that's so rad. Thank you.
Oh, Darren, thank you. Oh my gosh. I can't believe you guys all came. I love you all.